We were visiting with someone recently. It comes up from time to time, often with a counselor or a psychologist or psychiatrist who is working with someone who wants to feel better but does not. And we were describing the range of emotions that can go all the way from absolute depression, feeling of being lost or buried, all the way to ecstasy. In other words, it's a broad range of emotion and feeling. And we were saying that when a person is in a very strong negative emotion, like a feeling of depression or grief or abandonment, one of those very heavy, consuming, suffocating feelings, that the path of least resistance for them, which is the same thing as saying the path of most allowance, it is not logical for them to go from depression to joy. They can't make the jump. No one can. Any more than you can set your radio tuner on one station and receive what's being broadcast on another. So we said sometimes a very practical, logical, effective, deliberate reaching for an emotion might be anger. In other words, think about it. Doesn't anger feel better to you than grief or depression? It does, doesn't it? Certainly not the best choice in the world, but it's a better choice than grief or depression. And it's a closer match to where you are, and so it is a more likely choice. So the psychologist often will say, oh, well, you are just shifting your grief to anger. And anger is not a healthy vibration either. And we say, healthier than grief. Felt better. Almost anybody would agree with that. And so rather than say, oh, you need to make the jump all the way, why not applaud the fact personally that you feel a little better in your anger? In fact, we might even help you to create a list of others that you're angry at for a while, just so that you can maintain that angry improvement over that deep depression. Now, we want to put a disclaimer here. We do not want you to plan on staying in that angry place forever. But it is a bridge from your depression. And once you're angry, then reach for a bridge from the anger into something else. But sometimes what happens is, from your very strong negative emotion, as you're starting to make your way out of it, then someone observes your, what is to you, new improved state of being, but your new improved state of being is still on their list of things that people should never do. And then they counsel you or correct you that your anger is not productive. And we would say to you to say to them, tell them to mind their own business, because no one can know what improved path of least resistance you are upon. So as you make this your personal trek, as you say, nothing is more important than that I feel good and I am on my way to feeling better and better and better. And no one said I must jump from depression to joy. In fact, no one has ever done that. You cannot do it. In other words, you have to bridge your way into a better feeling place. And of course, there are all kinds of things that may be potentially active in your vibration. And the more you have practiced a myriad of good feeling thoughts that are also active in your vibration, then the more possibility you have of moving to the better feeling thought. Now let's talk about the subject of depression or grief for just a moment. And let's think about, so something has happened in your experience. Maybe it happened to someone you know. Maybe it really is not directly related to you other than that it happened to someone that you know. But as you focus upon this thing that happened to someone you know, this dramatic event gets quite a bit of your attention in your now. More than usual, more than anything usually gets. And so you have focused for a few hours or days or weeks upon this subject until you've really activated a vibration that is counter to your own desire. It does not serve you. And you are feeling the emotional response to it. Now, why do you feel negative emotion? What does negative emotion mean anyway? Negative emotion means that in this moment you are choosing a vibration that is keeping you from connecting with the energy that is really you. In your physical bodies, you are extensions of source energy. And when you are in extensions of source energy and you are holding a thought that is in vibrational harmony with that energy that is your source, you feel wonderful. That's what elation, that's what clarity, that's what that feeling of passion and eagerness and love and joy and appreciation is. In other words, when you feel like that, that's what we call tuned in, tapped in, turned on. You are in vibrational sync with who you really are. In fact, you are in that moment, you are then really who you are. But in your time of negative emotion, what that means is something has your attention and it's had it for a while, and you've been beating the drum of something long enough that you have a pretty active vibration going on that is different from the vibration of your source. In fact, it has become more dominant than the vibration of your source. And while you are beating this drum, no matter how justified your society would claim that you are holding yourself in resistance to the source energy, which means your physical body is diminishing, you are not experiencing as much well-being, and not only are you blocking the resources of your physical human body so that your well-being is being hindered, you are blocking all resources of all well-being that you have been summoning. And so the more you've been summoning, the more you have been setting goals, the more you've been saying, I like this, I want that, I prefer this, I'm going to do something about this. The more attention that you've been giving to those things that you desire, and the more energy has been summoned by you on your behalf, and the more source energy that is flowing to you in creative response to those desires that you have set forth, then the more that contradictory energy is going to be felt by you. In other words, you go 100 miles an hour and you hit a tree, it is impressive. So, as you begin to become aware that the emotion that you feel is your indicator of your mix of emotions, and you say, nothing is more important than my awareness of my mix of emotions, because nothing is affecting me. There are no outside circumstances that have any power over me. There is no assertion. There's no law of assertion. There's no somebody else can make something happen in my life experience. Everything is being asked for by you, and everything is being allowed by you. And there is nothing else and no one else in the mix. It's only you and 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 you. In other words, it's only about you. It's only about the vibrational thoughts, the vibrational drums that you're beating. So something happens in your experience. It happened to someone you know. You gave your attention to it because in society that's the way you're supposed to behave. And you began beating the drum of it until you activated within you something that is counter to the source energy that is really you. And you feel strong negative emotion. And for the sake of this example, let's say it's really strong. You can hardly catch your breath about it. In other words, you are about as low as you can ever remember being. And then someone says to you, get happy. And you say, drop dead. Someone says to you, this negative emotion is not serving you. And you say, tell me something I do not already know. I don't want to feel like this. I just feel like this. I didn't mean to beat this drum. I just beat this drum because it seemed like the appropriate thing to do. And now I've got myself into this vibrational place, and I will bring myself out of it. I will bring myself out of it little by little. Now here's the thing we want you to hear. If you have been, and most everyone is to some degree in this category, if you have been beating drums of things that you prefer about different subjects, then you have the potential of activating a lot of really good feeling vibrations. You just don't have access to them right now. And in nearly every condition, as time passes, this new beating of this drum that is causing the discouragement will wane, and other more life-giving vibrations that you have been practicing from time to time will surface. In other words, it is natural for you to regain your balance, even without a lot of conscious, focused willpower. But this is the science of deliberate creation. You all have come saying, I want to be the creator of my experience. I want to set the tone of my vibration. I want to set the pitch of my vibrational point of attraction. I want to be the deliberate creative allower of what comes to me. I am willing if it comes to that, to let enough time pass that eventually I stop beating that drum so much as I'm distracted with the other things of life. And I know that eventually I will come out of the depression, as nearly everyone does. But I want to have my hands in the clay. I want to be the deliberate creator of my experience. I want to practice vibrations. I want to practice the beating of drums so that no matter what happens, I'm stable. Because otherwise, you are buffeted about by a small cork on a raging sea as conditions and circumstances happen in your world or in your neighborhood or in your household, in your experiences, as things are happening that get your attention, and in getting your attention, it causes you to beat a drum, then you take a roller coaster sort of ride if you haven't decided that you can control the way you feel. And so when you begin to say, I can control the way I feel because I can control what I focus upon, and you say, and I'm going to start from wherever I am. I'm not going to wait until I'm joyful, and I'm not going to wait until something happens that makes me need to do it. I'm going to start right now today being the deliberate creator of my experience, which means I'm going to deliberately start thinking thoughts because I'm wanting to deliberately start noticing the correlation between the thought I'm thinking and the way I'm feeling. I'm going to beat the drums that feel the best. And that falls into the category or game that we like to call making the best of it. Making the best of it. Now, you know a little bit about, in fact, many of you know a lot about beating the drum of something and how it will increase. In other words, have you ever known anyone who just deliberately makes the worst of everything? They just emphasize the worst possible scenario and play it out, a sort of negative what-if game, so that they can get as much mileage as possible out of not feeling good in this moment. And what we are encouraging is the opposite of that. We're encouraging that you make the best of everything, because no matter where you stand, if you do your best to feel a little better, then you'll stand in a new place, and if you make your best to feel a little better, then you'll stand in a new place. And if you do your best to feel a little better, before you know it, and in a much shorter time than any of you really realize, you'll be right back out into that beautiful, bright, light place where you are aligned with the energy that is really you, where only well-being can be your experience. And then you will have the experience of moving through life, even though there are things that are happening around you that will not be affecting you. Now, for some of you, that feels uncomfortable. It feels a little uncomfortable, as Esther talked to a friend in New York who was sitting there in her second day with no electricity. She was very happy that she had one old-fashioned phone that was working. And she said, "Where are you?" And Esther said, "Oh, let's not talk about that." Her friend said, "Well, where are you?" "Well, I'm embarrassed to tell you where I am. I'm in Malibu." "Well, what are you doing?" "Well, I'm watching dolphins jumping, kayakers kayaking, and surfboarders surfing, and I'm actually in an utter state of joy. I'm so sorry." "It's cool here. We have our windows open. We ate papaya with lime on it. I'm thriving. I'm sorry." Because when people that you adore are having experiences that are less than thriving, you're not the best bridge for them, are you? Law of attraction would not normally bring you together. In other words, law of attraction would not put someone in ecstasy together with someone who is struggling. But in your physical environment, you often deliberately walk into situations rather than feeling your way, rather than vibing your way, rather than allowing your way. And so this gathering, as we talk about the art of allowing, what it's really about is you deciding that you want to feel good, and then practice feeling good, and then allow universal forces to create the unfolding of your life experience. It turns out that your work is feeling good. Your work isn't about making it happen. Universal forces make it happen. Your work is about feeling good. And we have to say to you that in the vernacular that you mean as work, it does take work, meaning it takes effort, meaning it takes concentration, meaning it takes attention to a subject, meaning it takes deliberately doing something. It takes work to feel good, but the payoff for beating the drum that makes you feel better is huge.